Hello and welcome, students of NKT. This is another episode of Test, Don't Guess. I am really excited to have on today Shawn Kitzman, all the way from Minnesota. He is a massage therapist and level 3 NKT. Shawn, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. I'm really excited to do this podcast.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on today. Shawn, I want to bring you back to where you started in the whole therapy world. How'd you get into massage? I know that you started back in 2000, around that time. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I have this super eccentric uncle, right?
Okay.
And in the 80s, he was talking to me about rolfing and how rolfing was actually helping out his handball and his hiking and his mountain biking and all of those things. And he did yoga and he did Tai Chi. Super eccentric dude, right? And I don't know why. I don't know why all of this stuff interested me and fascinated me at 10 and 11 years old. You know, at 10 years old, he was coming in from Connecticut and sitting us down in the living room of my grandparents' cottage, and we're banging on our heads and doing all this taponement and all this crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
And but it always kind of stuck with me. And then my dad suffered a bunch of low back injuries, and he would go to a chiropractor, and the chiropractor helped him out a bit, and he did PT for a while. But the thing that we found that benefited him the most was Dixie cup, ice, you know, put it in the fridge or the freezer, ice massages. And then, you know, we would use a rolling pin and, you know, try and roll out his back some. And that seemed to really help him. And I suck at school. I have a GED, right? I suck at school. I'm awful. So when I got out of high school, or when I took my GED after I was done with high school, I didn't know where I wanted to go. I'm a super kinesthetic person. Like if you can put me in front of something that I can put my hands on, like I'm really good with that.
Yeah.
And so my mom wanted me to go to PT school, and I was like, I've really been out of high school. How in the hell am I going to make it to, you know, through college? Yeah. And I took a half a semester of community college after I graduated from high school, and I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. I started practicing martial arts in 92, and in 97, I was at a martial arts seminar. Dan Inosanto is Bruce Lee's best friend. He was a pallbearer. He kind of took on the mantle of Jeet Kune Do, which is the art that Bruce Lee developed after Bruce Lee passed. And he was talking about Guru Dan's first generation Filipino American. And there's a big healing tradition within the Filipino community. And he was talking about all of these body workers or these healers in the community that he passed up. Like, he didn't want to know how to heal people. He just wanted to learn how to kick people's asses. And he really regretted that. So in 97, I was at the seminar. It was May of 97. I can see it to this day. He says, you know, if you really want to understand this martial arts thing, you should really learn the healing arts as well. And I thought, gosh, you know, that really kind of resonates with me. And I was working retail at the time. And I said, well, if I ever get crabby working retail, I think I'm going to go to massage therapy school. So that was May of 97. In September of 97, I was enrolled in massage therapy school.
Okay.
So between May and September, I got crabby.
Yeah.
So then I got out of school, and I really didn't know how to. I lived in a very super conservative community in Michigan. There wasn't a massage envy on every corner. You know, there wasn't a chiropractor that had 77 massage therapists in the office. It just wasn't it wasn't there. And in August of 2000, I was mowing lawns. I mowed lawns for like 2 or 3 seasons and hated every day of it. And at August of 2000, I was like, I'm done with this. And I saw an ad in the paper. That's how old I am. I saw an ad in the paper for a local chiropractor who was looking to hire a massage therapist. I went in. He hired me that day. I worked for him for 9 months, and that's how I got into the field.
Wow. That's really cool. So then what was, from there, what was your first experience in the world of NKT? When did you first hear about it or learn of it? And then what was your experience like when you first took a NKT seminar?
Yeah. So I taught one semester at a college, which is kind of funny, right? I suck at school, but I taught at a college.
That's pretty amazing. That's cool, actually.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I taught one semester at a college in Michigan. And I was doing a lot of research because I taught occupational and sports massage. And I really wanted to give my students a big picture view of like, look, it's 2011. There's this thing called the internet. We have so much information that's available to us that I didn't have when I was in school. And you have zero excuse in 2011 to be a crappy massage therapist. You have zero excuse. The only excuse that you have is that you don't want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. But if you get into the field, there are so many routes that you can go, but you have so much information in front of you. And I was looking at some of Leahy's stuff. I was looking at a couple other people. Gray Cook, obviously, Gray Cook had really kind of blown up at that point in time. I found Gray through Dragon Door, through the Russian Kettlebell certification. And so I had seen one of David's posts, and this was like late November of 2011. This is another one of those things I kind of remember where I was at, right? And he was talking about scoliosis. And I worked with a ton of clients initially. As a matter of fact, my longest standing client in Michigan, he had scoliosis. So I got him in, I picked him up in 2000. And until I moved to Minneapolis, he was a client of mine for 16 years.
Okay, wow.
But that was how he first came to me, was scoliosis. And, you know, I was really bad then because I was just starting to work. But I had figured out quite a bit of the stuff with him. And when I saw David talking about how his pairings with scoliosis, I was like, oh, man, on some level, that really, really makes sense to me. I don't know what he's doing. I don't even know what the hell it is, right? But like, it really makes sense to me. And so I commented, and this is early Facebook too, right? I mean, like early business Facebook, right? Because people weren't really flooding the market yet, or flooding your newsfeed yet with business stuff. I had commented on his thing. Somewhere along the way, David private messaged me and said, hey, I'm teaching, this was Perry's first course in New York. I'm teaching NKT at the end of December in New York. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, thank you for the invite, but you know, we got Christmas the whole nine. So I had a colleague of mine who I was mentoring for a while, and I was doing the same with her. I was just like trying to flood her with information to cause her to look outside of what we were taught in massage school, because she was a great massage therapist, but she was starting to work with some athletes. And I'm like, look, you know, just, you know, stripping out a muscle isn't going to get the job done all the time. We need to think bigger picture. And I had heard one of Craig Lebo's, and she had finally checked it out. This is like April, I think, of 2012. And I was actually sitting at breakfast with my wife, and we're doing this on Facebook, right? And I said, hey, check, you know, she finally comments, hey, this is a great video, thanks. And I'm like, okay, so next check into David Weinstock's work. David must have been on his computer. He pops up in the comment thread, hey, Shawn, thanks for introducing Ashley to my work, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, holy crap, this guy, how did this happen, right? And we wound up scheduling him to come out and do the first NKT seminar in the Midwest in September of 2012. And yeah, I mean, like at that time, I think there was like 150 people on the scholars page. Level two hadn't even been formulated yet. So that's the intro.
Okay. Wow. That's great. So that's really easy that you could host them. A lot of people, it's like, oh, they were, you know, iffy and they had to travel super far. That was smart. You just made them come to you. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was really happening. I mean, it was so early into NKT. I think he had taught maybe 4 or 5 courses outside of, you know, out of California at that time. So it was just happenstance. It was right place, right time, 100%.
Yeah.
And funny enough, David went to school for a short period of time in Ann Arbor. So he lived in Ann Arbor. So when he came, we went down to Ann Arbor and we went to some of his old haunts and stomping grounds. It was super fun.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah. So what was the year? What time was that again when you first
2012,
took it? 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Okay. Yep. So then, you know, how did you progress from there? You said there wasn't even level 2 or level 3. How did it progress in your learning to then kind of learn the full scope of what we have as NKT now?
Oh man. So at that time, you know, there was 5 of us in Michigan that had taken NKT.
Okay.
Or 6. And 2 of us were actually starting to use it. Mm-hmm. The rest of the people, kind of like what happens, just it's just attrition. So it was a 3-day course at that time. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so Sunday, actually Monday morning, I dropped David off at the airport, and I have clients that day, and I'm like, I'm gonna go do this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was bad. I was awful. Like no lie. I TA a lot of the seminars. No lie. Actually, this is my book, right?
Oh wow.
So no lie. My book stayed on my client's leg like this for probably 6 months. Okay. Serratus anterior. It looks like that's exactly how I did it. And so, and we didn't even have Vimeo videos at the time. Like,
oh, wow.
we had at the time was Dropbox, which is like, it's like dynamite. You touch the wrong thing and everything goes away. And I wanted no part of looking into anything on that. Like, I was like, because every once in a while David would come on and go, would you please stop deleting the files? I'm like, I don't want any part of that. So, and then what I would do is I would get together with the other person that I hosted the seminar with, and we would get together once a week and study. That was even before study groups happened. Like, study groups weren't a thing yet. They were a thing in California, obviously, because Thomas and Bob and David were all still, they were doing those things. But outside California, because there wasn't this big groundswell of people, So I would get together with Ashley I think we got together for about 6 months. We tried to do it weekly. Because from my martial arts background, I knew that I needed a ton of repetitions to get this down, and I said to myself, I have 5 years to really like that's my goal, is 5 years to really master this system. And it wasn't even a system yet. Right. Mm-hmm. But I knew cause I could tell that there was a definite, learning curve that was going to have to happen with this. And it showed so many of my inadequate things that I did in my practice, like, oh my gosh, I remember sitting on day one, sitting up there looking at the slides going like, oh my God, how did somebody's leg not fall off when I worked on them? I've been releasing psoas for the last 6 years. How did somebody not die?
Yeah.
And which we all have. We all have those feelings of like, oh dear Lord, what did I do to these people? I want to call them and apologize, Mm-hmm. So yeah, I knew that I had to get into practice and start doing it right away. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And it was tough. It was really tough. Like there were days where, like both Marissa and I, cause Marissa was in the same class, there were days where we would post, yep, threw my book across the room today, mm-hmm. So yeah, it was rough, but like, as I went along more, and as I put it into the work, and I actually took and separated massage and NKT altogether. Okay. So for a little while I tried to do it together. But, and I'm really good at draping, but, like trying to test an iliacus or a psoas underneath. Right. Like, oh my gosh, man. Like, you're trying to figure out where the sheet is, and now how do I get the leg? And,
super difficult.
Yeah, it's super difficult. So I just pitched that out altogether. I was like, okay, if you have an injury, we're doing this. Mm-hmm. If you want a massage, we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, I was already starting to move towards more just specific work anyways. Yeah. 2008 to 2010, I traveled with a nationally competitive boys soccer team as their kind of trainer massage therapist, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was seeing a lot of high school aged athletes, and it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me, and it would have been really sketchy to, have all my high school kids come in and get undressed, get underneath the sheet and start working with them. Like, that's way, 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 way too sketchy. Yeah. So, they would just come in and keep clothes on and a pair of shorts and t-shirt, much like they would go to the chiro or a PT or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was already making that transition. And that was that NKT just really catapulted that forward for me, because now I had a good reason, because I could get them up off the table and have them move around and get them back on the table again and test. So yeah, within a year and a half, I had recycled or rebooted all of my clientele, and I was seeing nothing but NKT clients then. Wow. Other than like some of the old clients that I had for, 8, 9, 10, 12 years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so.
That's great. Wow. When did you say to yourself, like, okay, I feel really confident? Like you said, for the first 6 months, you kind of had the book on somebody's leg and you were reading it. At what point did you say, okay, I feel like I've got a hold of this. Like, I've put in the work for this amount of time. And I think that I've kind of got a handle on what I'm doing here with NKT.
Well, it's September 1st, 2017. I hope it's September 2nd, 2017, because you go through these periods, like early on, how everybody would say that you know that you're ready for level 2 or the next level is that you start running into these really complicated cases. And we have to remember, like at the time, 2012, 2013, there was no muscle to muscle testing, right? I'm sorry, directional testing. There was no directional testing. It was find an inhibited structure and find a TL that will turn it back on, and that's your thing. So there was none of that. So you know, I would run into things, and then like I could tell, like, man, there's I'm missing something. This is outside of my current scope of tools, right? So I took an orthopedic testing class, you know, just to kind of get better at figuring out like some joint stuff. My releases and palpation were pretty good. So I didn't feel like I really needed a ton with that because I'd spent, you know, 11, 12 years doing that already. And then like I had to get my correctives game on. So that was talking to a lot of the NKT practitioners and talking to them about their correctives game. And my anatomy needed to get much better too. Like my actual functional anatomy, understanding what moved what. Because I understood it, you know, from powerlifting, I understood it in my martial arts practice, but like, you know, thinking like antagonist synergist and kind of getting that idea. So it took about 6 months for me to for the book to come off the leg. And so I could feel comfortable in most of the tests. And still today, I mean, there's still some tests that I don't use. I mean, you know, like, so I'll refer back to a book, you know, my book quite often, even today. And then, you know, I ran along for about a year and a half. And then I took level 2. And I ran along at level 2 for, I think, about a year. And then I took level 3. And at each phase, like I said, there was this feeling of like, yeah, like I get now that I'm running up against something that's really outside of my current skill set. And when I ran into that enough times, then I was like, oh yeah, I should probably go do the next thing now, you know? Or when I would ask questions, you know, I would ask like Marissa or Thomas or Eric or whoever I was asking at the time, like, hey, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And when they would give me an answer that I wasn't able to quite grasp because they had taken some of the higher level courses, I was like, no, I gotta do the next thing.
Right.
So.
Okay. So it was kind of like a 2-year process of taking, you know, from level 1 all the way to the finish of level 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years. I think like 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you really took your time with it. A lot of people kind of blast through it real quick, but of course, after you took level 1, you said that there wasn't actually a level 2 at that time, so you had to kind of wait for them to develop it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I was really dug into and how I approach it today, how I would tell people early on, and how I would tell them today to like progress through our 2 different ways, because you know, there's so much great material in level 1, and there's good material level 2, and level 3 really just brings everything all together. So, but again, like I knew for myself that my testing needed to get a bunch better. So I was really super focused on kind of the mechanics and the intricacies of the art or the craft of NKT.
Yeah.
And the results were important to me. Don't get me wrong, but that's how. And that's my martial arts training, right? Like, you know, I do jiu-jitsu now, and I train with these really talented young kids, and, you know, success is like this big, you know, like you have to really, it's growth versus fixed mindset, you know, like, so when I knew it didn't matter who I was testing, I could get good, accurate tests. Even if my results were skewed, I knew that I was getting closer to start getting good results. I knew if I could find a TL in the first like 2 or 3 structures that I was looking to pair it with, or just TL with at that time, that's how I knew that results might not be fantastic, but I'm getting better, right? And so that was super important for me. But that's, again, like I said, that's just that martial arts training just coming out in me and just finding, you know, depth in small details.
Yeah. What were some of the really big struggles that you had to kind of overcome? I mean, you said that, you know, perfecting the testing and the crafting of it. Did you have any like really specific things that like, I just couldn't figure out how to do this one test right, or this one, you know, format of working with people, or anything like, I mean, did you have any big struggles you could share?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I avoided ankles like they were the plague.
Ankles.
I mean,
Okay.
dude, I wouldn't come near an ankle. Like I would just straight massage it out. Like go, get out of here. I didn't want to see you because the tests were so like nebulous to me. Like I just didn't understand them. And quite honestly, the neck was really hard for me as well. Like, what was too much pressure? What was not enough pressure? What was a good lock? What was a crappy lock? When are they bracing? All of those things. You know, the psoas was pretty easy. Glute max is pretty easy. I mean, those tests that routinely fail that you can get a good piece for. But what I started, I worked with a bunch of soccer players. So, you know, soccer players and ankle injuries go, it's like, you know, it's like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together, you know? Yeah. So it came to a point where I couldn't ignore it any longer. So those were really tough. And also like trying to figure out how to sell it to my clients, you know? You know, really making a firm stand on, cause I was really passionate about the work, you know, like I saw, and I would tell my clients, like my old clients, you know, hey, look, last 2 weeks ago, I know we did this, but even though I'm awful at this, I feel much more comfortable long-term working like this, using this methodology with you than I did before. And I lost clients because of it. You know, I mean, there were clients who just didn't, they just wanted me to, you know, spread lotion on them and let's talk about your dog, you know? And I wasn't interested in doing that any longer. I really was passionate about the work. So some of the struggles was selling to my clients. Some of the struggles was realizing really quickly that I had a client come in with stuff that was way over my head, and learning how to slowly hack through that, you know, because if you've got good level 1 skills, you can do so much stuff, you know, I mean, like, and so really learning how to just slowly hack through pieces of material. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes testing like the RA and the TVA and making sure that all that was going and I had good pairs and, you know, that was before directional testing. So I guarantee you I was testing stuff and I thought that I had patterns that didn't stick because, you know, there was no flip in the test. There was no way to kind of check it against something else. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see that students today, you know, working with students or going to seminars or things, do you see that students maybe make the same kind of mistakes that you made, or do you feel like there's a whole different gamut that students are going through right now? Well,
you know, I mean, you know, in the current evolution of NKT, I'm like an old guy now, so I'm kind of get off my lawn a little bit, right? In that there's a study group, or you can Skype into a study group wherever you're at.
True.
And like I tried to bring Michigan up to speed, right? And I had in the from 2012 to 2016 when I was in Michigan, I had 3 people that wanted to actually legitimately practice NKT with me. Okay. So there was nobody in Michigan. It was me. I was blazing the trail. So I don't want to hear about it. Like, look, don't cry to me that it's hard. I know it's hard, right? But you have so many more resources than we had, right? Like there was no study groups. You trying to Skype into a study group back in the day was like, you know, flint and fire, you know what I mean? Like it was so hard. Yeah. And so there's just so many more resources to us today. So yeah, I see the same, like the things that I said after level 1, I've TA'd, I think 11 or 12 from level 1 to level 3. I've TA'd 11 or 12 NKT seminars. And I hear the same thing from level 1 to level 3. Everybody feels like they're inadequate. Everybody feels like the material is really hard. And it is. I mean, you know, super smart people with really fancy degrees that it doesn't matter if you're a Pilates instructor or a chiropractor or a PhD, you know, a PhD level, you know, physical therapist. Like everybody struggles with material. I mean, everybody does from level 1 to level 3. It doesn't matter. And at each phase of the game, like everybody's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is really hard, you know? So, but it's the people who actually, one of my favorite sayings in jiu-jitsu is that and this is me, right? It's not who's good, it's who's left. And the people that stick it out and they engage with the work and they practice hard, those are the people who make it from level 1 to level 3. The people who feel like this is really hard and I'm not good at it, nobody's good at this. Nobody's good at this in the beginning. So, if they can just dial in and get over the learning curve and be humble and take their lumps, then they'll make it through. I'm not super smart. I have a GED. Like, I'm not a super smart dude, but I can tell you what I do well. Like, when I want to do something, I dig in and I work at it relentlessly. And across the board, I don't care who it is, from Thomas to David, whoever it is, right? Eric, that they're all the same way. They all apply themselves and work really hard at it.
Yeah, Shawn, great advice and great stories. That's really awesome. I want to shift a little bit from your stories now into how you work with people in your office.
Yeah.
When somebody comes in and they just have no clue what NKT is, they've never heard of it before, how do you explain it to them? How do you, that practical, okay, here's my elevator talk, or this is what I'm going to do with you in a second. How does that go down with your new clients?
Yeah. So you can only get to me one way. So the only way that you get to schedule an appointment with me is if we have a phone conversation.
Okay.
So, and you only get to me by referral. So I don't, and there's many ways to build a business. This is just the way that's worked for me. Right. So however everybody else does it, cool. If you've got a successful practice, fantastic. This is just the way it's worked for me. So, but you don't schedule an appointment. You don't get on my table until we talk. And so we have about a 10 to 15 minute phone conversation, and where I'm screening you. I've told people that, no, I'm not going to take you on as a client because I'm just not a good fit for you. I'm not going to do what you want to have done. So I'm very, very, very specific about that. And I don't work with people that I don't like. I in the last month and a half, I fired 2 clients who I didn't like.
Wow.
So I'm very specific with who I work with. In the phone conversation, like if you said, hey, Brandon, if you called me up and said, hey, Shawn, my name is Brandon. I heard about you from my friend so-and-so. They told me to come see you. So I'll listen to their symptoms, and then I'll tell them, okay, so I'm going to tell you how I run my practice. I kind of go through the outline of my practice and how I run my practice. And then I talk to them about, I'm looking for muscles that are overworking, and I'm looking for muscles that are underworking. I use a manual muscle testing system called neurokinetic therapy to kind of figure those patterns out. And I don't really care what your tissue is telling me. I really care about what your brain is telling me. So the tissue's revved up and tight and sore for a reason. That doesn't happen randomly. The brain is revving that up. And that's a muscle memory pattern. And most people know what muscle memory is. I mean, in 2017, most people know what it is.
Yeah.
And I keep it really super basic like that. And then as we go through the session, you come in the office, again, they're seeing me for a very specific reason. So when you come in the office, I've kind of prepped you already. We've talked a little bit about it. You have no idea what I'm going to do because there's just no way I can explain it to you. So when you get into the office, they take intake. I have them move around, do some, movement screens. And then I do some palpation. I try and find the high tone tissue. And then I talk to them again about that high tone tissue and the relevancy of that, right? And why I'm paying attention to high tone. And then I just start testing them. And as I kind of see light bulbs go on, if I do, then I will get deeper into it. But I found that most of the time, if you can provide results, clients don't care. I could set this bottle of eye cream on top of them and they wouldn't care if they got better. Like as the practitioner and in our own insecurities, and this happened with me and it happens with everybody else, because we're insecure and we're trying to figure out the process ourselves. One of the best ways we do that is we have to talk through it. Right. And so all of that verbal dialogue in the beginning is really, I feel at least most of the time, my own or our own insecurities. And we're trying to grasp at straws to see what, a client will grab onto or a patient will grab onto. And which is a very necessary learning process, by the way, right? You have to do those things. You have to put the reps in at the sales pitch so you get comfortable with what the pitch is. And then eventually what happens is that across the board, they just kind of get it. And then they don't care. Like when clients back in Michigan, if a client was to call me, hey, look, my friend so-and-so called me and they told me that you do some really weird stuff, but it works. So I want to come see you, because you provide them with so much value that it doesn't matter any longer, you know?
Yeah, very true. Very true. You said that, okay, so, you know, a phone call is kind of standard protocol for you. And then you said that you do some movement screens and assessments. Are there any of those that you can share that are sort of also standard protocol for you?
Yeah. So, I'm old, you know, we didn't have FMS back in the day, right? Like, so, I have a selection of handful of kind of hacky movement screens that I'll put them through. Sometimes I'll single leg stance them. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll have them squat. I'm working with a ton of cyclists right now and triathletes, like Ironman kind of elite level amateur athletes.
Okay.
So oftentimes right now they come in with their bike and I have a trainer in my office and I put them on the bike and I look at them on the bike.
Okay.
One of my friends, a guy I'm starting to work with about the last 3 months, he's one of the best bicycle fitters in the Midwest and in the country. And so on Mondays, so this goes back to this practice thing now, right? On Mondays, I got to learn what Chris does. I got to understand how he does stuff. On Mondays, I go spend 3 to 4 hours at his office for nothing.
Oh, wow.
So I can figure out how he does stuff and what he's looking for. And I've done that I've probably spent 20 to 30 hours in his office and will continue to do so until he kicks me out. Right.
Okay.
Because I need to learn the thing. I need to learn what he's doing. So when clients come in, I can get really specific with them. I need to learn what he's looking for. Right. So, and also we kind of jam with that as well. So, but yeah, so as far as movement screens go, you know, like I'm old, you know, they didn't have FMS and SFMA, and I think they're great systems. I taught martial arts for a period of time, so I'm very used to watching people go through movement. And squatting is fairly complex, but teaching a 60-year-old guy how to kick is really damn complex. So there's just certain things that I've had to do, you know, that I've gotten around it. If I was a new therapist today, then definitely I would go take one of those courses to help out my screens. But yeah, I'm a hack and just haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
You know?
And then when you get into the NKT, do you kind of have a sort of standard protocol for, you know, okay, I always test these things first, or I never test these things first, or, you know, you go straight to the issues, or you look at, you know, the Powerhouse 5, or what kind of protocols do you have for doing your NKT? Yeah.
If you're in my study group, like we have a study group here in Minneapolis, you know, I'm super opinionated about this, but everybody has their thing, right? I developed my practice, a cash-based practice in Michigan in the mid to late 2000s. It was an economic desert. Nobody had any money. So if I'm going to do something new, I can't go, if you're complaining about shoulder pain, I can't go down and test your ankle unless I can concretely put it together. But what happens is if I can provide value to you and I can get you out of shoulder pain, then I can tell you, Brandon, go lay out in the street, get run over a couple times, and then come back on. And you'll be like, cool, I don't know what you just did, but that worked, right? And so the place, this kind of goes back to some of the early things that we were talking about before, the place where I see a lot of people get into trouble at with their NKT practice, and I did this, everybody does this, is that they don't realize that, you know, when you start local, you know, antagonist, synergist, then you look at your anatomy trains, and then I tell them go crazy after that, you know. But you need to build trust with that person because they have no idea what you're doing. And so I started the problem, like case in point today, I had before I talked to you, I had a guy come in for an initial consult or initial appointment, and he was having left hamstring pain on the bike. Got him on the bike, noticed that his left ankle or left heel was internally moving when he was pedaling. So he was going, instead of like this, he was kind of right. Well, I know already that there's a pretty good chance that there's going to be an ankle issue there, right? And he's complaining about bicep fem pain, and then everybody's telling him that his glute doesn't work. So I put him on I looked at him on the bike, talked to him a little bit about what I do. I use the Essential Anatomy 5 app with every client. I pull it out. I show them what I'm thinking, you know, like I really kind of help educate them along with that. So I talked to him about that. I have some charts on the wall, showed him kind of, here's what I'm thinking. And then, you know, even though he's got that hamstring pain, my gut's telling me that there's an ankle instability issue because of what his ankle is doing on the bike. And I filmed it on my phone and I showed it to him, right? So put him on, start testing his tibia posterior, his peroneals or fibularis, depending on what you call them. Left ankle, trash, weak as hell, right? And then we worked our way up the leg. And so I found a left hip posterior overworking for a left popliteus, and then left bicep femoris overworking for left adductor. And so, you know, that I stayed local within the problem, but I actually sold him on why I was going to his ankle.
Yeah. So, yeah, for you, I mean, that's great that you can, you know, you do your video and you seem to go straight to either, you know, the area of complaint, or if you can, like you said, bring value to it, or you can bring it back to, you know, with that experience, being able to understand, okay, I know that you've got this issue and this is relevant to that. So you can connect the two and make it really explainable. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I think is really, as we go along as professionals, like we can go from becoming service providers to educators, right? So a service provider is somebody who just does whatever they're in their field. When you walk into I want you to drink the Shawn Kool-Aid, right? Like I want you to be so amazed with what I do that you walk out and you're compelled to tell everybody about it, right? And so with that, if I take that educator and put that educator hat on and feel it's my responsibility, then it's so much easier for clients to buy into crazy things, right? Because it's not just some random idea that I have. And if I get to random idea, I tell them, hey, look, I'm throwing a Hail Mary here. I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Okay. So back a little bit here, you always have people give you a phone call.
Yep.
Do you have any other kind of prerequisite things when people come in, you know, like, okay, read this stuff, or wear these clothes, or I want you to, you know, do X, Y, and Z and send me this paperwork? Or, I mean, do you have any other kind of like prerequisite things, or do people sort of give you the phone call and then come in as they are?
Yeah. Unless you're an athlete, but unless you're a referral from one of my athletes, I don't work with you.
Okay.
So I work with athletes. That's all I work with.
Okay. So yeah. All right. Only athletes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only athletes. I don't work with general populace.
How do you feel that's different working with athletes than the general population?
They have a reason. They have a reason to come in.
Okay.
So like my guy today, he's going to do Ironman next Sunday. And if I can help him do his thing better, he's in. And if he's not in, then he's an idiot. I mean, like if I help you do your thing and you can't figure out that what I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't want you as a client anyways. So yeah, then I have them fill out paperwork in the office. I'm trying to transition to like just sending them paperwork so they can come in.
Yeah.
You know, like in the beginning they come in shorts and a t-shirt, but a lot of people are coming in after work or before work. So like, you know, I mean, I can palpate underneath jeans in a dress shirt or whatever, you know, I mean, so, but like, I like, if I can recreate some of their issues as well. So, you know, like I said, with the guys on the bike, when I was in Michigan,